From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News Crew.
Mr. McCarthy, thank you for joining us here on KZGN-TV. You gave a very stirring speech there about the Washington crossing the Delaware, which I didn't know that story. But anyway, I wanted to ask you some questions, and one of them you brought up during your speech to the people about the Iran deal. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, to me, this is the most important item we have before us. If Iran is allowed to have a nuclear weapon, the world will be different. I'm going to Israel just next week, taking a group of members and walking through. To me, this agreement is unacceptable. I'm not opposed to negotiating with Iran. I'm opposed to this deal. It allows them to have ballistic missiles. Why do you need a ballistic missile? Because that's not to shoot at Israel, that's to shoot at America. We should be able to have investigations or inspections anytime, which we do not have. Why would we supply Iran with the amount of money? This is going to be a bigger bailout than Greece got. Right now, Iran funds terrorists. They're in 4 different capitals. To me, this is not the place. And Iran needs an agreement. We do not. We can have a stronger agreement that makes the world safe and makes America in a stronger position.
Right. There's some talk in the news that there's secret agreements that even Kerry doesn't even know about.
Yes,
and that was strange.
There are 2 agreements. Deals with the international group, and we haven't even seen it. I've been in classified briefings, been asking about these. How can you even start the clock ticking if you have not seen these agreements?
Right. Yeah, it's just amazing what we find out as we go along instead of knowing the picture right up front.
Well, what's even interesting more, if half of the Congress, more than half the majority, votes against this agreement, the president says he's going to veto and still put it into effect.
Right.
When you have the majority of Americans opposed to this agreement.
Right.
I think the more Americans see about this agreement, the more they'll be opposed to it.
Right. Well, I certainly agree with you there. Another subject, you started talking briefly about the campaign for president.
Yes.
And all the candidates. What do you think about the large pool that we have?
Well, we've got a big pool of candidates on the Republican side. The one thing I would say is I don't believe the Democrats could get this big a field. So that's a positive on that end. I hope they look about the vision and foreign policy. I think those 2 issues will be the ones that define who's going to become president. It's still very early, and always in this time, people in the lead and people below, but remember, Ronald Reagan didn't start leading until New Hampshire. So it's good to have a debate, it's good to have an argument, and I think that's what we want to see.
Mm-hmm. And I got to ask the question, what do you think about the excitement about Trump?
Well, Trump has an interesting take. I think he's just fearless. People want to see their leader to be fearless. They want to see people to have a compass. There's a difference when you look at some of the things he says. I don't think the public. I disagree with when it comes to POWs. I think POWs to me are heroes.
They are.
And they always will be. If you're going to be commander-in-chief, I think you have to believe the same. Mm-hmm. But I think economic. People are looking for jobs. They want somebody that can create jobs. Mm-hmm. So those who are also running should look at the way he delivers his message and also what he's talking about. I think that's important to people.
Right, yeah. When they start saying, you hear the pundits talking about, well, it must be just because they want somebody that fights. And because they're not so sure that Congress is willing to fight.
Well, there's a great frustration about this current president mm-hmm. and what he's done and how he's gone around the system. And I know we fought him in a lot of different ways, and we'll continue that. We just would like to have somebody else join with us.
Yes, and this campaign is really going to be a big step going towards where this country goes.
Exactly. And I don't think Hillary is the person that could take us in that direction.
Yeah. You think Joe Biden's going to get in?
I don't know. That's very interesting that even the Democrats are not happy with Hillary, so yeah. We will see.
It would be interesting if he did get in, though. All right, let's. Another subject would be is you started talking about water.
Yes.
Okay, and that's very important.
Very important.
And I was tracking the bill that you did pass recently, and how can we get Sacramento to do something? I think that's part of our problem.
Well, we do. We need Sacramento to do something because they haven't. the first thing we needed to do is build more storage.
Yes.
You know, just 5 years ago, we had 172% of snowpack. If we would have stored more water then, we'd be in a different position today. We need to be able to have movement through the Delta, so we can move water down to Central Valley and to Southern California. We need to protect our water rights. That's important as well. I think the bill we have is common sense, and it puts us in a much stronger place. A lot of people are talking about maybe having an El Nino next year. Well, if we don't have the storage, we don't get the benefit. And one El Nino won't take away our problems. And California goes through this time and again. We've lived through many droughts before. We should have learned before to be better prepared. That's why 4 years ago, we passed bills to be better prepared, but the Senate wouldn't take them up. I'm hoping they take our bill up this time.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was noticing, that quite often the House is passing things, but the Senate isn't taking them up.
Yeah.
How do you get that to move?
Well, we're putting a lot more pressure, but what's most interesting, there's a lot of frustration out there, but they watch what the House has passed. People would say, yeah, that's what I want to see happen, and they watch the Senate stop a lot of things. So we're hopefully with this new Senate, we'll get more done.
I know one thing that a lot of our viewers ask about, especially in Ridgecrest areas, the anger over executive orders.
Oh, yes.
Okay. What they want the Republicans to fight against them.
Well, if you watch in the approach process, we stop a lot of those. There's supposed to be three co-equal branches. Right now, they're not co-equal. This president has gone around judicial. He's gone around legislative. But we have continued to fight, and we'll continue to fight. If you watch what we've gone after, the money we've cut. You look at the EPA, they have a smaller budget today than they had back in the 80s. We have gone after time and time again, but this president continues to try to go beyond the realms of his responsibilities.
Right, and now we have that thing where he's gonna, this week he's talking about expanding the illegal immigration.
Yeah, well, we've been able to stop that, and also with the courts.
Right.
We just have to make sure we keep it intact.
Right, and it's not that anybody's against immigration. That has nothing to do with it.
We're for legal immigration,
exactly.
That's what we want to see.
And that's where a lot of people feel we need to go that way, and that's what they're looking for Congress to do for us.
And if you watch the bills we've passed, especially you look at these sanctuary cities, we've gone in to punish sanctuary cities because they're not upholding the federal law. Now we've had people die from an illegal shooting.
Right.
You watch with the president trying to have illegals come into the community. We want a legal immigration system, so we've passed to protect the border stronger. The Senate has ignored that.
Right. And you bring up Sanctuary City. Is the Congress going to take up Kate's Law?
Yes, and you watch, we've already passed one element as we go through.
Okay.
Yeah, but when we go back in, you'll see that element get brought up as well.
Is it going to be brought up in fall then, or?
Yes, but we've already gone after and made sure if these sanctuary cities embrace the sanctuary city, they should not get federal grants for their law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Encourage them not to do that as well.
Right. Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people that feel that and agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything you'd like to just say to our viewers one time?
Well, the one thing I want to tell the viewers, thank you for the opportunity to serve. We may not agree 100% of the time, but my door is always open. I will always listen. I view Ridgecrest as my second home city, and I think Ridgecrest is important for many different reasons, but it's important to this country and it's important to this world because you cannot duplicate what this base does anywhere else in the world. And we got to make sure we protect that, but also we're going to see enhancement. That's been a lot of my work. You look from the direct hire, our work on locality pay, from cutting back what we've done. We're preparing this base for the 21st century and beyond. We're going to have 400 more people working at this base at the end of the year than we had before. The amount that we spent to this base is going to be up from 1.2 to 1.5 billion. This is not only an economic driver, it's also a security for our country. And we're going to make sure we do all of our part. So I see a big field. I have no favorites in there. They shouldn't run against each other. They should run for something. You can become popular in today's climate about what you're opposed to, or who you're opposed to. I want to see what people are for. Show me what you see this vision is about. And as I go around the country, it's easy to be angry But you know, a lot of you have been in my office where I have my Lincoln and my Reagan. You know why I have Lincoln and Reagan in my office? And I have this artist that paints these for me, a guy's named Henley. He's pretty well known artist. And in my conference room, I have that Washington crossing the Delaware. You know why I put Washington crossing Delaware in the conference room? We do a lot of work there. But you all know the picture, right? Where Washington's standing up in the rowboat. Do you know the history of who painted it and why? The original hangs in New York. This is a duplicate of it. And it was painted by a German artist. He was an immigrant who lived in America for 10 years. So he wasn't there the night of 1776 on Christmas, watching us cross the Delaware and surprise the Hessians, our first victory in the Revolution. So he wasn't there, but he wanted to paint it in his mind, right? So they criticized him because the Delaware looked like the Rhine, but he's German. Now in this picture, most people just focus on George Washington. He's standing up, right? He wouldn't have been standing up in the rowboat that night. But it looked like he had never lost a battle. Well, he hadn't won one. But do you know there's 13 people in the picture? Why 13? Yeah. But you only see 12 faces. And next time you see the picture, I want you to look at the people that are in the boat. Because this was his mind of what he saw America. The second person who's rowing wearing a beret, he's Scottish. The person right across from him in the green jacket is African American. Then you come down a little ways and the red jacket is a woman. And in the very back, a Native American. I think probably all were not in the boat that night. But he depicted America as a melting pot. The other thing, they were all rowing in the same direction. But the second to the last person, he has his hand across his face. That's the hand of the 13th person that you do not see. And what the artist wanted to depict to everybody, here are these people. America's a melting pot. They risked everything for liberty and freedom, not only for themselves, but for you, having never won before. Here's a hand. Will you get in the boat and join me? And I put that at my conference, the idea that's where we do a lot of our work, so we don't forget what we're rowing to or where we're rowing to get to. And that we're willing to risk that others have risked before. But then when you come into the office and you see Lincoln and Reagan, my two favorite presidents. And Lincoln's in black and white because of what was happening in the country during that time. But I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time in the office, and late at night I was a little crazy. I always wonder, what would these two men tell us today, right? I'll give you this advice. Lincoln would tell us, believe in the exceptionalism of this country. That we're different than any other country before us. And don't be afraid of it. Embrace that. And the reason why I think Lincoln would say that is the Gettysburg Address. You know it, 7 years ago. But you ever listen to the other words? He wasn't even the main speaker. That our forefathers brought forth a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated the proposition that all men are created equal. He goes on to say, but government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish. He says, if we fail, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from earth. He did not say, if we fail, don't worry, France or England would pick up the torch. Because they're not conceived in liberty and dedicated the proposition that we're all equal. We are different than every other country before us. You know when that hit home? It wasn't when an American brought it up to me, but it was a leader of another country. I was in the rotunda, and Shimon Peres comes in, and we're giving him a Congressional Medal of Honor. He's 92 years old. He's in his last term of president of Israel. Think of it. When he was born, his country wasn't even created yet. He watched the creation of his country. He watched the battles. He fought in them, the wars, to sustain his country. And he stands before us and he says, you live in the greatest country that's ever been on the face of the earth. Not the greatest country of our time, but in the face of the earth. Because you know, your greatness doesn't come for what you take, but it's what you give. That you will give the ultimate sacrifice of life so another country could have freedom. And with that freedom becomes human rights and a stronger economy. That's who we are. There's been no other country like that. Every other country would conquer to take.
We risk lives so others can live. There's a reason why we're supposed to lead. And there's a reason why we have to put ourselves in a position that we still can lead. The next bit of advice, Lincoln would tell us, don't blame others for where you currently stand. No matter how big the problem is, find a solution to move forward. You know, the debate of slavery didn't start with Lincoln. It didn't start in 1850. It started the creation of our country. But our forefathers said it was too divisive. So they put it off. By putting it off, hundreds of thousands of their grandchildren had to die. He solved the problem. Solved the problem. Don't blame others for it. You know what? In all the time of Lincoln, he never once blamed Buchanan. You know, before he got sworn in and got elected, 7 states left the Union. The last bit of advice I'd tell you from Reagan, he's in color and smiling. The best bit of advice, if I put a partisan hat on, if you're conservative, be a happy conservative. Angry conservatives, yeah, they'll get people, yeah, finally someone's fighting. But it gets you a small group. Reagan was a happy conservative. Why? Because he knew his policy brought people greater freedom and liberty. So you should be happy about where you stand, but you know what? More people will want to know why you're happy. More people might believe what you're fighting for. So, that's my last bit of advice. I thank you for the opportunity. I want to work with you to make sure this city is in the right place for the future now. This happens to be, to me, I think, my second home. It's important for me personally, but I think it's important for the nation and the world. This base is more than just a base. This base will determine where we are as a country. You can't duplicate it anywhere else. So don't look at it just as economic. We've got to make sure we have what it needs, that base always has the opportunity. But it can be economic at the same time. So how do we make sure and ensure that? We should be leadership Ridgecrest. We should make sure USO, that they understand the support that we have for them. And we should also have a one-stop shop. So if somebody wants to do business on that base, it's easy to open up here. And that's how economic is. Thank you very much.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's go to Keith for the weather.
Thank you, Tom. From the National Weather Service, a frontal system moving across northern U.S. will bring scattered showers and thunderstorms to much of the interior west today, with monsoonal moisture contributing to the chance of rain across parts of the desert southwest. Meanwhile, showers and thunderstorms are possible across parts of the eastern U.S., including Florida, the coastal Carolinas, and northern New England. Temperatures across the nation: Carolinas came in at 82, Georgia 75, Arkansas 80, Colorado 76, New Mexico 72, and Los Angeles at 73. For our forecast here in the IWV, tonight partly cloudy with a low around 72, west-southwest wind 10 to 15 miles per hour. Thursday, mostly sunny and hot with a high near 104, west-southwest wind 5 miles per hour. Thursday night, mostly clear with a low around 72, west wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 105, west wind 5 miles per hour. Friday night, mostly clear with a low around 72, west wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. And on Saturday, sunny and hot with a high near 102, south-southwest wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Records for the IWV. Our record precipitation was set in 2010 at 0.21 inches. Our current average is 0.01 inches. The record high temperature was set in 1985 at 109 degrees, and the record low, 57 degrees, set in 1990. And that is your weather for the IWV. Now back to Tom and the rest of the KZGN News.
Thanks, Keith. Now Tom Heck with sports.
And a very pleasant Wednesday afternoon to everyone. Let's start with Burroughs High School football. The Burroughs open up Friday night. They'll play Palmdale here at home at 7 o'clock. We'll be on the air at 6:45 if you can't get to the game on radio on 12:40 a.m. KLOA. Also, the Coaches Show is Thursday night, and you can listen in there also at 7 o'clock over on 12:40 a.m. That's the All Sports station in Ridgecrest on radio. All right, let's talk about Major League Baseball. The Dodgers, they do it again. They beat Cincinnati 5-1. They're now 12 games over 500. And the Dodgers have a 2.5-game lead on San Francisco. Same two teams playing tonight in Cincinnati. The Angels picked up a win. They break a 4-game losing streak. They beat Detroit. The Tigers now have slipped into last place in the American League Central. Boy, who would have thought? Justin Verlander will be on the mound tonight. Same two teams in Detroit. The Angels find themselves, at the moment, 4 games back of the Houston Astros. Okay, Toronto beat Texas last night 6-5. Every time the Rangers get close, they just can't get over the hump. They lose to a very good Toronto team who just mutilated the Angels this past weekend. The Toronto Blue Jays scored 36 runs in 3 games to down the poor Angels. Houston 15, New York 1 last night. I'll tell you what, the Astros kind of up and down. They don't win on the road a lot, but they had a good win last night. Houston right now still holding first place in the American League West. A good battle in the National League East. Washington now 5 games behind the Mets, but still alive. They beat San Diego last night in San Diego. The Mets are now 13 games over 500. Believe it or not, at one time the Mets were 4 games under 500. In fact, at the All-Star break, they were only 1 game over 500. So they have really been a hot team. All right, the Chicago Cubs, they win again. Talk about a hot team. They're now 22 games over 500. They beat San Francisco last night in San Francisco. Seattle beats Oakland. St. Louis wins again, best record in baseball. They beat Arizona. Now, Arizona is a team that every time they start to do good things, they just kind of fall apart also. They can't get over a hump. Arizona started yesterday only 5 games behind the Dodgers, and now they find themselves 6 games behind. That was the closest they've been in a long time. Okay, Kansas City, they beat Baltimore. Boy, the Orioles on a 6-game losing streak, and they are just fading away. Colorado, Cleveland, and the Twins also win. Boy, as we kind of turn the page, and only a week away from September, we look at the National League, and the Mets and the Washington Nationals, the only 2 teams that had a chance to win that one. The Mets with a 5.5-game lead over Washington. The Cardinals running away with the Central. They've got that pretty much clinched up, and the Dodgers 2.5 over San Francisco. San Francisco, every time they come within about a game of the Dodgers, that's as close as they can get. Over in the American League, it's a very big battle for that wild card. You've got the Twins, Yankees, Texas, the Angels, all battling along with Tampa Bay. Those 5 teams for 2 spots. As we start today, Houston leads the West. Kansas City's going to run away with the Central. And over in the East, the Blue Jays have a 1-game lead over the Yankees. But more than likely, one of those 2 teams will be a wild card team.